We are seeing early signs of yet another surge in the polar vortex in about a week or so as more blocking looks to start to take shape. Over the top, that puts more Arctic air plunging down into the lower 48. And at the same time, we're starting to see early signs as well as the polar jet stream tries to link up with the southern jet stream. And if they're able to phase together, that might spell trouble with yet another big winter storm that looks to be brewing in about a week or so. If you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in to get all my daily content on this channel to keep you well ahead of the storm. So here is our initial winter storm that we are just coming off the end of it. This is over the last 3 days of snowfall, and man, this did not disappoint in any stretch of the imagination. We've had some pretty impressive snowfall totals. You can actually see the legend on the far right hand corner of the screen. All these areas that are yellow, you're looking at 5 to 8 inches. You start getting into the lighter orange, 8 to 10 inches. The orange color up 12 to almost up to 18 inches of snow. So we had a pretty impressive low pressure center that dove down through the Rockies, set up more snow across New Mexico. That went through the Texas Panhandle. We had a foot of snow into the Texas Panhandle, and even portions of North Texas there had up to 8 inches of snow. Right outside of North Texas into Oklahoma, you had some foot snowfall totals. And then once you got into Arkansas, it really started to overperform. Mena, Arkansas checked in about 14 inches of snow. But look at the snow dipping all the way down into the south, those areas into northern Mississippi. Even Birmingham and into Atlanta got in the action with snowfall, and of course further north into Kentucky as well as into Tennessee, and that went as far north as Illinois, and now it's swinging over through the Ohio Valley, swung all the way into the East Coast, and now it's kind of winding itself down up there into the East Coast. And as of right now, you can see this main storm system, it's pretty much off the coast now, off the East Coast. We're starting to get just a wraparound on the backside of that upper level low, so whatever moisture is left, it's wringing it out in the form of some lighter snow showers up there across upstate New York, getting into Vermont and New Hampshire, portions of Maine there, and further south into Massachusetts and Connecticut. And then there's just some lighter snow showers through West Virginia, but that'll be on the end of a pretty extensive last 3 days of that winter storm. And for the first week of January, through that first 10 days of January, it's been on the predominantly of the colder side. These are your temperature anomalies for the last 10 days, and we talked about the Arctic front looked to be east of the continental divide, and that's exactly what happened. Of the coldest anomalies, essentially east, so 2/3 of the nation got to experience that Arctic blast, and some of that winter storm that unfolded over the last 3 days. Areas out west kind of missed out on it and stuck around on the above average side. But that looks to change heading into this next system, because we are going to be looking at a rebound. So it's going to be kind of quieting down, if you will, over the next week or so as the polar jet starts to retreat a little bit further north. So that's going to put really the coldest, densest air. And then you got the subtropical jet, which is still going to be active. So we're going to be watching these systems. But right now, for the next week or so, we're still going to be under some cooler anomalies, but not as cold. So it's still going to remain on the below average side, but definitely not as cold as what it was over the last week, because we're still going to have the blocking in place. So Alaska's continued to be on the warmer side. Those areas across the north continue to remain on the normal side, even though the polar jet will be starting to retreat. And as it does, you can see it kind of dries out for a good part of the nation over the next 7 days as the main storm system kind of cleanses out the atmosphere and kind of resets and reloads, if you will. There's still some moisture available with that southern branch of the jet stream coming back into for those areas across Louisiana, as well as into Mississippi, Alabama, and portions of Florida. You got the polar jet that lifts all the way back to the north. So whatever clipper system that's coming out of Canada, that's all going to be in the form of snow. And here's your snow for the next 7 days as the subtropical jet starts to kind of relax. Not much colder air. It's still cold, but not Arctic cold. And then you got the polar jet continue to remain active, but it's active well further north. So you just get these clipper systems that come out of Canada. Of course, you got the Intermountain West snows, and then more snow will be draped across Minnesota through northern portions of Wisconsin, really the Great Lakes regions into Michigan. And these are lighter amounts over the next week, put you through next Saturday. But beyond that, things start to change yet again, right? This is January, folks. We expect it to be cold this time of year, but we also look for areas that have bigger impacts. And this is what another time frame that's likely going to have bigger impacts across the nation as the pattern kind of relaxes for the next week. But it really comes back with a vengeance as we have yet another plunge in the EPO, your Eastern Pacific Oscillation. Yes, that's you east of the Continental Divide. And you can see how negative this gets. So this is going into typically the coldest time of the year. And also when you see the teleconnections drop so far south, you know that's going to be a colder period once you say hit the 18th time frame of January, and it continues to remain on the negative side all the way through that 25th. So for that week again, it looks to be very cold into the lower 48. The difference this time with this particular setup is the PNA is also actually going negative. So for that's you guys that's been on the above average side for those areas out west. Now you at least get a piece of this Arctic blast that's coming. So much of the lower 48, if not all of the lower 48, should likely experience well below average temperature anomalies heading into that 18th to say 24th time frame of January, as the polar air will start to rebuild up there across the Yukon Territory and start to dive down south again. So as the EPO goes negative, the PNA goes negative again. That puts the colder anomalies not just on the eastern side this time, but for those guys out west. So much, if not all, of the lower 48 should start to be experiencing that much colder air coming back in the picture, really starting next Saturday. And then I think that just extends into the weekend. So this is what kind of it looks like, you know, as you head into that January the 18th Saturday timeframe. This would be next Saturday. We're starting to look more colder air starting to build. Those teleconnections start to go negative. And so that sends it one way, and that's southbound, folks. So you got the blocking over the top. You kind of have a more of an ideal type setup, if you will, as it continues to plunge colder anomalies well into the lower 48, takes it down through the plains and enters it back into the picture all the way down to the deep south again, and starts to feel the effects for those guys in Texas again. So if you look at the jet stream going into next Saturday, you can see what we're talking about. So you got the polar jet starts to come back, right, as feeling the effects of that Arctic air continues to plunge further southbound. You got the southern branch of the jet stream. And so what happened last time is these two systems kind of phased together. They merged together. They interacted with each other. So that was able to tap into the much colder air coming from the north and able to tap into more of a southern branch of the jet stream, bringing moisture. And if those linked up, which that last time they did, that spelled a big winter storm that was draped across a good chunk of the lower 48. And that actually might happen again, folks, because by the time we head into that 19th of the month, you know, that colder air is really going to keep pressing southbound. So these anomalies only would get colder by then. And this could actually end up being the coldest air mass of the season, you know, that we've seen so far. We've seen some colder shots, but considering that going into that time frame where you're already typically the coldest time of the year, and then we have a surge down from the Arctic bringing some polar type atmosphere, this air mass is actually coming from eastern Siberia, folks. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the potential impact this system likely could bring of where the source it's actually coming from. So you know it's cold up there in Siberia. So once it makes it down into the lower 48, obviously it's going to be modified in a great deal, but it should at least bring the coldest temperatures so far of the season, and you're really going to be feeling it in a big way by the time we head into the next weekend, and especially as we head towards that MLK holiday here across the middle part of the country, of those 25, if not almost 30 degrees below average, as early signs show that polar jet and the southern branch of the jet stream try to merge together. And at the same time, we got like a deja vu type setup. So the cold air would likely be in place for a day or two. And then we have another area of disturbed weather, another area of low pressure building out west, just like we had, right? So that creates the lift mechanism falling into that Arctic air. And that could spell trouble with more snow for a good part of the country. And the Climate Prediction Center has already kind of higher confidence and already highlighting a good chunk of real estate with the combination of that Arctic air plunging southbound again, and an increased likelihood of that polar jet merging with the southern branch of the jet stream. That would create the lift and bring more snow back into the picture for those areas into Colorado, into New Mexico, portions of Texas again, into Oklahoma, as well as into Kansas, likely pretty much all of Arkansas again, Missouri into Tennessee through Kentucky, much of the Ohio Valley, getting up here into the mid-Atlantic, and as well as into New England once we pass that 18th time frame. And if that could happen, don't take this verbatim, just kind of gives you an idea of the overall storm track. Yes, we could be looking at that kind of a phasing together and more snow possibly breaking out for those areas in New Mexico, through Texas again, portions of Oklahoma. This would likely swing through Arkansas, like I showed you, as well as bringing more snow with more of a battle zone with some ice into the middle. And of course, you got the all rain to the south, but the snow would be pretty heavy across these regions through Kentucky, as well as into Pennsylvania, getting back up into New England again. But by far, on the backside of this is going into a colder period. So we're coming off the big winter storm, right? The pattern kind of relaxes. We do start to slowly nudge up in a little bit, but it definitely comes back with a vengeance. And once it comes back, and as the teleconnections lock in on the negative side with the EPO and the PNA going both negative, that should put the coldest anomalies of the winter season so far in a much of the lower 48. And look at the EPS ensembles, by the time we head into that 20th time frame through that 24th time frame, it's a very cold period across the lower 48. And the GFS is also implying it on the ensemble front. So we're starting to get a lot of congruency coming together and hinting at, yes, we could definitely have more Arctic air on the table. And once it gets here, it's going to lock in for an extended period of time, but it also could merge with these two jet streams and create another big winter storm across the lower 48. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update, why I protect you before and after the storm.